Today's video, we want to look at ABO blood group system. Upon the discovery of blood transfusion, that is immunohematology, which started way back in 1600, whereby there was the first transfusion which occurred. But the clinical application of blood group system began in 1900. Whereby we are going to see in 1900 a German scientist known as Karl Landsteiner. This man who is credited and won the Nobel Prize for discovering the ABO blood group system. So this one was discovered in 1900 by Karl Landsteiner. And this is the one, how did he discover ABO blood group system? He discovered by reacting antigens, that is A antigen, B antigen, and H antigen on the surface of red cells with their corresponding antibodies. So antigens are sometimes known as agglutinogens, whereas antibodies are called agglutinins. So antigens are called agglutinogens. Then these ones are known as agglutinins. Because antibodies, or what we call agglutinins, are produced in response or triggered by presence of agglutinogens, which are known as antigens. So this scientist found out that whenever there is the presence of A antigen, because these antigens were found on the surface of red cells, for example, if we would find an antigen like A on the surface of RBC, that one would be blood group A. If you find an antigen B on the surface of RBC, that one becomes blood group B. Then when you find antigen AB on the surface of RBC, it would become it becomes blood group AB. And if you find there is no absence of the antigen on the surface of red cell, that one becomes blood group O. So according to Karl Landsteiner, he found out that later there is a scientist who came up known as von de Castro. He found out that there is only 3 genes, that is A gene, B gene, and O gene, and these genes, they are inherited from both parents, whereby each individual inherits 2 genes, one from each parent. And he found out that these genes, that gene A and B, these ones were dominant. They were dominant genes, whereas gene O is a recessive gene, meaning AB masks the presence of ABO. So this one is the one that gave rise to 4 different groups. This one gives rise to 4 different blood groups according to these genes, whereby A and B gene are dominant over O, which is recessive. So this is what we can introduce about ABO blood group system. And we are going to see that whenever your red cells express A antigen, if they express A antigen on the surface, these ones, the antibodies present will be B antibody. Then if someone on the RBCs expresses B antigen, you find they have A antibodies on the surface in the serum. This is on the RBCs, the surface of red cells. Then this is in the serum. This is on the surface of red cells. This is in the serum. So if on the red cell there is antigen A, in the serum we find there antibody B. If you have B antigen, in the serum we find there A antibody. Then if you are blood group AB, you find A and B antigen on the surface of RBCs. This person lacks or has no antibodies. Whereas someone who has no antigen on the RBCs, these ones in their serum, we find there A and B antibodies present in serum. So this is what gives rise to four blood group systems we have according to ABO. And we're going to see them, which we have seen that their inheritance is from both parents. It is inherited from both parents, whereby you inherit two genes, and these two genes each from a parent. And we're going to draw a table seeing how these different blood groups come about. So we're going to see in a table format that if we have a phenotype, so this is the phenotype, then we shall have the genotype, then we shall see presence of the antigens on red cells, then we shall also see antibodies in serum. This is the table we are going to use. So we're going to see that individuals with phenotype, blood group phenotype is representing what we call blood group. So if someone has blood group A blood group, their genotype, either these people inherit two genes. We said there must be two genes, one from each parent. So they can either be a gene, or they can be A or alleles. So they have two alleles, or what we call alleles, whereby it can have dominant AA or dominant AO. And we said O is recessive, so presence of O is masked by presence of a dominant gene, that is A. And this individual, on their red cells, they express what we call a antigen or agglutinogen. And the antibodies in serum, they have what we call anti-B in serum. That is for blood group A. Then individual with blood group B, they can either inherit alleles, that is BB, which are dominant, or they can inherit B, which is dominant, or which is recessive, and still they remain having blood group B. And on the surface of their red cells, these guys express B antigen, and the antibodies in the serum, we find their anti-A antibodies. Because in case the antigen corresponds to the antibody, agglutination occurs, resulting into death. So the antigens must not correspond with the antibodies for someone to survive or to be transfused. That is according to Landsteiner theory. Then we're going to see an individual with the blood group AB. This person, genotypically, they inherit AB. For them, they don't have O. Then the antigen on the red cells, they have both antigen A and B. Then they lack antibodies in serum. That is, they have no antibodies. That is an individual. That's why we normally say that a person with blood group AB is a universal recipient. They receive from both blood groups. Why? Because they lack antibodies in the serum. So there is no reaction in any of the blood group. Then another type of blood group is known as O blood group, whereby genotypically these ones, they inherit O gene, that is on their chromosomes, and the antigen on the RBCs these guys lack. they have no antigen on the surface of their red cells, then in the serum, you find they are both anti-A and anti-B in their serum. So we saw that these ones, they have no antibodies in the serum. Then these ones have no antigen on red cells. And that's why we normally say that an individual with the blood group O is a universal donor. So this one becomes a universal donor. Then with AB becomes a universal recipient. Why? Because they lack antibodies in the serum. And this one is a universal donor because they have no antigens on the surface of the red cells. So these ones can donate to everyone, especially the O negative rhesus. But before, because we haven't talked about rhesus factor, so here it remains a universal donor. So that is what we can see about introduction to ABO blood group system, whereby it is very important to master this table, because here we can ask you many objectives or what we call multiple choice questions, that which of the following blood group lacks antibody in the serum? That one we have to know it is AB. Or which type of group is a universal donor, that is O, and which of the blood group is a universal recipient, that is AB. And maybe they can ask you that which of the following blood groups lacks antigen A and B on the surface of their red cells. Those ones become O blood group. So this is what we can talk in summary. We have to remember that this discovery of immunohematology began in 1900 by a man known as Karl Landsteiner, who further found out that there are 4 different blood group systems according to ABO. That was blood group A, B, AB, and O. And it was depending on presence of antigens on red cells. And if an individual had an antigen on red cells, they should not have a corresponding antibody in the serum. So if someone has blood group A, the antigen is A, so they should not have antibody B, antibody A, because they correspond, they can react, so they have a different one, which is antibody B. And that was according to Landsteiner theory. And we have seen, according to inheritance, an individual inherits 2 alleles, each allele from a parent, forming either homozygous or heterozygous. And it is important as a student to understand different definitions, which I want you to discover. They can ask you what is the phenotype, that is the physical expression. Then what is the genotype, that is genetic makeup of an individual. They can ask you what is an antigen and what is an antibody. And then you must also know what is the chromosome, what is a gene. They can ask you what is the dominant gene. They can ask you what is the recessive gene. Those definitions are very important to understand as a student. And they can even ask you other definitions. So thank you so much for learning with us, where we have seen all how it entails under blood group ABO blood group. Thank you so much for always learning with us at Medical Sciences. We are always privileged and always urge you to subscribe. Remember to share to others so that we can continue to learn into this new generation. Thank you so much.